Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
All right, we're going to hear part 2 today of our article entitled Redemption in a Christmas Carol. It's all about Charles Dickens, and in particular, probably his most famous work in the world, A Christmas Carol.
So last month we talked about Washington Irving, and yesterday we talked about how kind of A Christmas Carol was one of the earliest versions of modern Christmas that we can recognize. There's still no jingle bells. There's still no we wish you a Merry Christmas. But Washington Irving was one of the first writers to talk about Christmas, and it inspired Charles Dickens himself, who was a fan of his work.
I think that they could have just done without all of that. When it comes to Christmas time and you hear those Christmas carols for the umpteenth time, I think that a lot of people are just tired of it because they get played over and over and over again. I read about it in the New York Times about how tired people get of this.
I am a fan of certain versions of songs that I can listen to yearly. I am unable to listen to the 24-hour Christmas music stations because it is very tiring and exhausting. But I will not lie, although I'm not Christian, I am a very big fan of Christmas, especially in Taiwan. It feels like a party all the time here, and I very much enjoy the non-cynical, bitter version that I personally can also feel back home in America.
Yeah, that's right, because it's just, we've done it for too long, and it's just, cynical is a good word. Cynical is spelled C-Y-N-I-C-A-L. C-Y-N-I-C-A-L. That means that you don't believe that there's such thing as real happiness or joy or something really wonderful. Everything you're kind of suspicious that there's something not so wonderful about it.
I do not feel that cynicism, that's the noun version, I do not feel that cynicism here in Taiwan.
I can understand all that, and I buy that too. And in the early years when my kids were young, I also enjoyed it a lot. I've just seen too many Christmases. And there are certain Christmas songs that I absolutely detest. Now, I may put some...
you have to tell me.
I'm going to tell you one.
Okay.
I really don't like this song, and you hear it a lot in Taiwan. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart. Oh, I really hate that. And in the original version, they pronounce it wrong. But the very next day, you give it away. It should be gave it away, and they say give.
Have you seen the video recently?
No. I would avoid it.
The video, if you have not lived in the 1980s and you want to see what the 1980s really looked like, it is an excellent video. I agree the song is tiresome, but I adore the video.
Really?
It is classic 80s.
Really?
It is classic 80s pop. The song's not for me, but I love the music video.
So it's a bit of nostalgia for you.
It very much is.
Let's spell nostalgia. Nostalgia is looking back on the past with fondness. You really enjoy these memories. N-O-S-T-A-L-G-I-A. N-O-S-T-A-L-G-I-A, nostalgia. So you have waxed nostalgic. Turn it into C, nostalgic. Waxed means to become. W-A-X, it's just like the thing that candles are made of, but it's a verb. It means to become. So Chris waxed nostalgic.
Nostalgic is an interesting word. It's two Greek words. Nostalgia means to go home, to return home. And then the gia literally means pain. This is the pain that you can't go home. So in some ways, I can return home through the magic of YouTube. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm glad you gave me some positive input about something that irritates me every year. Okay, let's go to our article. Chris, do you want to start today?
Sure. The ghost of Christmas Present is the next spirit to visit Scrooge. This time, Scrooge is brought to the home of his employee, Bob Cratchit. Cratchit's house is tiny, and his family struggles to survive because Scrooge refuses to pay him a decent wage. While watching this scene, Scrooge learns that Cratchit's son, Tiny Tim, is very sick and will likely die because the family can't afford proper medical care.
Finally, the ghost of Christmas yet to come brings Scrooge into the future. When they arrive, Scrooge overhears some men talking badly about the death of an unpopular businessman. They all seem to be glad that the stingy old man passed away. Scrooge wonders who they are talking about. So the ghost shows Scrooge a grave, and he is shocked to find that it is his own. Just then, Scrooge wakes up. He realizes he's been a terrible person and resolves to turn over a new leaf. He makes a significant donation to charity. Then he increases Cratchit's salary and agrees to help Tiny Tim. The ghost succeeded in teaching Scrooge the true meaning of Christmas, and from that day on, he lived life with compassion and kindness for others.
A Christmas Carol was written by English author Charles Dickens. Dickens was born poor and worked many hard jobs before becoming a successful writer. As a result, poverty became a main theme in many of his works. In A Christmas Carol, the fate of the Cratchits highlights how the poor often struggle to survive while their rich employers live comfortably. The story also offers a positive message to readers. It suggests that it is never too late to turn your life around, regardless of what mistakes you made in the past.
Okay, a very good lesson. And for everybody, if you're thinking about the past and all the things you wish you had done differently or better, get over it. Focus on now because you've got the rest of your life to fix things. So don't just get, sort of pulled down. Don't let yourself be pulled down by the past. The lesson is focus on the present and do things better now. So let's go back to the beginning.
Sure. The ghost of Christmas Present is the next spirit to visit Scrooge.
Now, notice here that he says Christmas present because he's talking about the present time. It's not the ghost of Christmas presents. A Christmas present is a gift you receive at Christmas time, and it's a common collocation, so it might be easy to mix up. But you can make a clear distinction between them with stress. I got lots of Christmas presents. This is the ghost of Christmas present. That means the Christmas of right now.
Ghost here is also not reused. So we know these are ghosts visiting Scrooge, right? But we see the author chose the word spirit because it's clumsy and awkward to reuse that word so close to the word ghost that starts the sentence.
I'm curious, which word is more powerful for you, ghost or spirit?
When I think spirit, it could be a good ghost. When I think ghost, I'm thinking the chains and money boxes, the scary ghost that we saw on Jacob Marley, his business partner, in day one.
Which of the two sounds more powerful to you, or are they about the same?
I would say spirit would feel more powerful. I would run from a ghost.
Yeah, that's right. But I think of a cartoonish kind of ghost.
Casper ghost?
Yeah. I loved Casper when I was a kid. It's kind of silly. I did like Casper the Friendly Ghost. But for me, spirit sounds more powerful and more threatening.
Oh, interesting. It could be more like a demon ghost.
Something deeper, yeah.
I can see that.
Less superficial than Casper.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, next sentence.
This time, Scrooge is brought to the home of his employee, Bob Cratchit.
Note that the word employee or employee, as I just demonstrated, has two different possible stress patterns. This word comes from French. If you see anything that ends with EE, it's often from French. So you can say employee or employee. And here they're talking about Bob Cratchit. We're going to find out about Bob Cratchit.
Cratchit's house is tiny and his family struggles to survive because Scrooge refuses to pay him a decent wage.
This one called up a lot of powerful images immediately when I read this sentence. I don't know if it had that effect on you.
This whole first paragraph reminds me of life, honestly, without being too political, of life in the United States, like right now.
There we go.
It's like you could take this from the headlines of today's newspaper and pop it right in the book.
That's exactly how I reacted. And I was wondering if it did that to you too. And it did.
Yeah, in fact, above a decent wage. That was the only phrase I probably would have altered for a modern audience. I would say a living wage.
A living wage is the collocation we use most often now. And if you read about the history of revolutions, they often happen when there is too much inequality. If the rich are extremely, extremely rich and the poor are extremely poor and there's a huge, huge gap between the two, those are often the conditions for a revolution. That means huge, huge conflict and problems.
So it reminds me of, I'm going to say it incorrectly, but there's a Russian proverb, there's a Russian idiomatic phrase that the farmers would say, if it was not for us, the rich would have to eat their money.
And that is absolutely true. I think people forget that we need the working class more than they need us.
Right.
Okay, we don't put ourselves in working class because we're working in education and things, but the people who grow our food and who fix our pipes and our electrical circuits, we need them more than they need a bunch of eggheads writing papers.
It's so true.
Yeah, it's true. So survive because Scrooge refuses to pay him a decent wage. We have this picture in our mind of capitalists who are exploiting workers. Because they really need a job, they need money, they will see how little money they can give them and still get a lot of work from them. That's what their game is. So on to the next sentence.
While watching this scene, Scrooge learns that Cratchit's son, Tiny Tim, is very sick and will likely die because the family can't afford proper medical care.
Now, I have two images that pop in my head when I read Tiny Tim. Now, the first one is often illustrations in a very nicely produced copy of A Christmas Carol. The other one is the singer, Tiny Tim, from the 70s.
I never made that connection.
Garden. Did you ever hear that song?
Yes, absolutely. I know Tiny Tim.
Okay, just for fun, go to YouTube, look up Tiny Tim. He was really popular for a while. He recorded a lot of novelty songs. Novelty means just songs that are fun to because they're kind of silly, sort of like a joke. Novelty, it just means something new. Novelty, novelty songs. And the most famous one was Tiptoe Through the Tulips. So if you want to go back to the 70s and watch something really fun, watch Tiny Tim and listen to Tiny Tim with his hair. Notice his hair, and he sings with a ukulele.
I can't wait to see this video. I've never seen this video. I'm familiar with the song. I know the song. I've never seen the video. I can't wait to watch this.
It's a lot of fun. So that's the other thing I think of when I see Tiny Tim, and that's where he got his name. He certainly got it from Dickens. So here we're not going to think about that. That came much later. So Tiny Tim, in the pictures I've seen, the illustrations, he's a little boy, and he's very cute, and he's got one crutch.
Yeah, Tiny Tim was actually based on Dickens' own nephew. He was a disabled boy. And he was only 5 years old when Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol.
Right. Okay, so this brings a lot of bittersweet memories to mind, maybe. Okay, so the family can't afford proper medical care. Does that also bring you to America in current times?
Literally under this paragraph, I wrote, scary how this is so familiar to the U.S. I literally wrote that. And Karen and I didn't discuss this before we arrived today.
It hit me hard. As I was reading it the first time, I thought, oh my God, we have not learned anything. England has. England does much better.
Yeah, it is interesting that the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, to see all the pain that people suffered and go through, looks so much like our home.
It's sad. Don't get us too emotional right now. We better move on. Finally, the ghost of Christmas yet to come brings Scrooge into the future. Now, first of all, you can see that this is kind of a sentimental story. Sentimental, that means it gives you lots of feelings, a lot of strong emotions, but they're kind of corny sometimes. Like they're not really deep. They're just kind of cheap ways of getting people to have an emotional reaction. Charles Dickens was often criticized for writing stories that are too sentimental. But I have to tell you, just reading this little summary also brought me close to tears. I can't help it.
It reminds me a lot of kind of commercials. I'm a fan of watching commercials from the 70s and 80s, from my youth. And they are often very sentimental. And I watch them and I'm like, this is so corny, but I love it so much.
But they still affect us.
They very much do.
They work, and that's why they do it. Sentimental is spelled Sentimental. Sentimental. If it's kind of corny, if you've kind of overdone it, trying to get people to have an emotional reaction, you say, oh, don't be so sentimental.
McDonald's is the king of the sentimental commercials.
Coke.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Coca-Cola.
Very good point.
They really use that to sell. Okay, so when they arrive, Scrooge overhears some men talking badly about the death of an unpopular businessman. Now, we can kind of guess what's coming here, we as the readers.
So to talk badly about someone is to insult them, insult.
Yeah, so we may say good riddance to bad rubbish. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, absolutely.
Riddance is Riddance, and riddance is the act of getting rid of something. So you don't have it anymore. And good is an easy word. And the second part of it is too, bad, rubbish. Rubbish is stuff that we throw away. So if something really smells, we don't want to keep it around the house. Just get it out of here. Bring it to the garbage truck so we don't have to smell it anymore. We might say good riddance to bad rubbish, but we can also use it as a metaphor. If somebody who is just really lousy, there's really nothing good about this person that we can think of to say, we might say good riddance to bad rubbish and saying, oh, isn't it sad that he died? Okay, let's move on. They all seem to be glad that the stingy old man passed away, and we've already explained that. Scrooge wonders who they are talking about. Now, that's kind of funny. Why would he wonder? He does not have very much self-awareness.
This is the part in Mickey's Christmas Carol. I remember what we talked about in day one. This was the part that scared me as a kid.
Oh, namely because?
Wow, they have, who's the antagonist in the Mickey cartoons? He has this lantern and he holds it over the grave. And the big reveal comes in the next sentence.
Okay, so I used the word self-awareness. It's got a hyphen in it, S-E-L-F hyphen. A-W-A-R-E, aware is the adjective, add N-E-S-S for the noun. She doesn't have much self-awareness. That means there are a lot of things she should improve, but she's not even aware that it's a problem. So the ghost shows Scrooge a grave, and he is shocked to find that it is his own.
That is big news. This is also kind of a new idea in literature as well, too. This is not today it's like, okay, we get it. It's a little cliche at this point. However, when Dickens wrote this story in the 1840s, it was a rather shocking reveal.
That's right. And you notice that Chris uses the word reveal as a noun. That wasn't so common as a noun when I was a kid. I don't know about you.
Interesting. No, I did not. I was not self-aware that it was not generally used as a noun.
It had probably changed by the time you were a kid. When I was a kid, which was much longer ago, we usually didn't use it as a noun. So there's a revelation here or something is revealed here. We used it as a verb. But recently, it's become really popular to use it as a noun. Here comes the big reveal.
Yeah, I agree that revelation probably feels more suitable. I agree. I never even considered that.
You're young. What can I say? Next sentence. Just then, Scrooge wakes up. Now, that's a really easy sentence, but listen to the rhythm of it. Could you write a sentence with this rhythm and read it with this rhythm? Listen. Just then, Scrooge wakes up. Those are 5 words, and each one has only one syllable. And every single word is stressed, which means you cannot read it fast because then you'll miss it completely. Each one is strong and powerful. You need to put a little pause after each one, especially at the comma. Just then, Scrooge wakes up. So don't say, just then Scrooge I can't even say it fast. Just then Scrooge wakes up. You're going to miss the effect of it entirely.
It feels very weird.
You're going to miss it because there's so much information and it's a big reveal and something big is going to happen. So make sure you pay attention to rhythm. When you have just one syllable in the word and each one should be stressed, slow down. Just then, Scrooge wakes up. And now we know something is coming. This is a setup for something about to happen. He realizes he's been a terrible person and resolves to turn over a new leaf. What a wonderful sentence.
So to turn over a new leaf, it literally talks about books. It's still sometimes used, but the pages in a book can be called a leaf. And indeed, there was a bookstore in my old city that was called Talking Leaves, and it meant about the pages of a book. Correct.
What a clever name.
Yes, and here it talks about turning the page, starting a new chapter. This is not about a tree, but a book.
It's also possible to say it's time to turn a new page in my life. So to turn over a new leaf, this means that you're going to make some changes. You're not just going on to what happens next. You're going to try hard to do things better than before. To resolve to, that means to make a very strong decision, and you are determined to carry it out. To be a terrible person, this is also a common expression these days. What do you think of him? He's a terrible person. We use this a lot. Next sentence, he makes a significant donation to charity. Significant here means not small, a pretty big donation, which we don't expect from Scrooge because he's so stingy. So he gives a lot of money to charity, which we explained yesterday, I believe. Then he increases Cratchit's salary and agrees to help Tiny Tim. Those are huge steps, both of them. First of all, people need enough money to live on. I was listening to a podcast about somebody who's working 3 jobs, and she's working really, really hard. She still cannot make enough money to meet her rent and pay back her student loan. It's not enough money, even though she's working harder than just about anybody at 3 jobs. She does not have a living wage. That's number 1. Number 2 is the issue that Chris and I both reacted strongly to, the issue of health care. You'd better not get sick when you're in the U.S. because you are going to end up bankrupt. There is nothing to protect you, even if you have insurance. First of all, it's very expensive every month. Maybe $1,200 US every month will come out of your salary to pay for insurance. And then what else? You also have to pay a deductible. That means that the insurance will not even pay for your illness unless it's more than, say, $500 or $1,000. So this is a terrible, terrible situation in the U.S. So part 2 is health care. Let's continue. The ghost succeeded in teaching Scrooge the true meaning of Christmas. And from that day on, he lived life with compassion and kindness for others.
Come, C-O-M, or C-O-N means with or together. Passion, interestingly, means to suffer. So you suffer with this person. At passion today, we often think of strong romantic love, but it literally means to suffer.
That's right. And the passion fruit, actually, it looks like Jesus' passion. That's where they get that. It's suffering on the cross. There's a cross in it. Last paragraph. That's in the blossom of the passion fruit. If you look at the blossom, you'll see a picture of the cross. It looks like Jesus' cross. Last paragraph.
A Christmas Carol was written by English author Charles Dickens.
That's very straightforward.
Dickens was born poor and worked many hard jobs before becoming a successful writer.
I hope you were listening yesterday because we already explained that. Let's move on.
As a result, poverty became a main theme in many of his works.
He was obsessed with that. He was constantly thinking about that. He wanted people to become aware of the poor and all the things that they were suffering and what we could do to help them.
In A Christmas Carol, The Fate of the Cratchits highlights how the poor often struggle to survive while their rich employers live comfortably.
I saw a picture on Facebook. It said, if people really would become highly successful and rich purely through hard work, then every single African woman would be very, very wealthy. It has a picture of an African woman with 3 children on a bicycle transporting water.
The story also offers a positive message to readers.
So it's not just misery and you are a terrible person. It has a message of hope to everybody who reads the story.
It suggests that it is never too late to turn your life around regardless of what mistakes you made in the past.
Now, sometimes I think back and I think, if at that age I had known this, I would have done this instead. But then I tell myself, I'm still alive. I can still do it now.
That's true. Now, A Christmas Carol was written in just 6 weeks. His biographer, and I love this phrase, said that Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol in a white heat. The final pages were written at just the very beginning of December of 1843, the year the book was published. Dickens would develop most of the story in his head on the giant long walks he would take at night around London. He would walk up to 32 kilometers a night and then return home to write.
This is good for what people call diffuse thinking. D-I-F-F-U-S-E. D-I-F-F-U-S-E. Diffuse thinking. That means when you're not focused on one particular thing, you are not concentrating on one thing, you're just giving your mind free rein. You're allowing your mind to just think about anything at all. That's often when your best ideas come to you.
Well, I just want to say happy holidays to everyone. This is a wonderful time, and I genuinely enjoy it in Taiwan, so I hope you guys have a really good time too.
And that's it for today.